Hi friends and family, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Yapa Photo. This week it's a very interesting episode because I felt biased as an educator to talk about distance learning that has been a situation for all of us around the country for the past 3 months. And this week I have two educators joining for the conversation, Marie, who is based in New Orleans, and Todd, who is in Chicago. I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves. Bonjour, Marie.
Bonjour. So my name is Marie HEBERT. I am the lower school French teacher at Metairie Country Day School, which is a small independent school that was founded in 1929. We are on a 15-acre campus, which really matters to me because I love teaching outside. We start with an early childhood program all the way to high school with a total of about 760 students. And there I teach French from pre-K, which is like 4 to 5-year-olds for us, to 5th grade, which is 11 to 12-year-olds.
Exactly. And I met Mary last year at a conference, a professional conference, and we bonded because Marie and I were French, but we also teach the same grade. So it was a very bonding experience. Todd, tell us more about yourself, Todd.
So I am the director of world language for Niles Township High Schools, which is one of the suburbs just outside of Chicago, a very diverse place where we have over 80 languages and 60% of our students have a language other than English at home. I'm just finishing my 35th year. I started as a French and English teacher in rural Indiana and have been in 6 different school districts and had lots of different positions, now supervising a department in 2 different high schools. I've always been at the high school level with French and then administration.
And I love the diversity, Todd, because when I met you last year, I've been following you from school to school. And also, Todd, we met through the AATF, which is the American Teacher Organization. And I like the fact that you guys hold 2 different positions in a school setting. We have a teacher who is directly interacting with students, and then we have Todd, who is in charge of the world language department. So the first question, the big question obviously, is how did COVID-19 impact your business operations as an educator? What was the challenges for you guys to teach distance learning, Marie? How was it for you? What is your timeline? Take us back in New Orleans.
So it was an interesting week. We had 3 meetings that week. That was the week of March, the 2nd week of March, so March 15th, I believe. And Monday we had a meeting, all faculty and staff, and we spoke about what if the school were to close. And on Wednesday was when the school closes, what will we do? And on Friday was, well, we're closed. And so we closed on a Friday, and we had 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, to prepare lessons to go live on Wednesday morning. And so for me, I think the quick turnaround was very challenging because I went from my small classroom, literally teaching yoga outside in French, to having to kind of reinvent myself and having to learn how to do all the technology that was associated with that. Trying to stay safe on the internet with our young children is really hard to find websites that are completely safe and vetted by my school. And then in the end, although curate the amount of free resources, there are so many resources available out there. It was somewhat overwhelming for me. Make sure they were age appropriate, do the follow-up trainings associated with the curriculum that I was interested in or the websites I was interested in. Another challenge was to make sure I could meet students where they were. Obviously, when you're in the classroom, you do a comprehension check. You can quickly differentiate, say group 1, you'll go here, group 2, you'll stay play with me. You can't do that online. You don't know who's watching what, who's learning what. And making sure to assign the right amount of work was another challenge for me too, because I did not know if I was giving too much, too little, too hands-on, too video, and just try to find the right balance for the parents that I knew were working with the students, because at the age group that I teach, which is elementary, I knew that the parent had to be behind them to engage them into doing the work.
Exactly, I hear you. I'm in the same position, Marie, because I teach also very young children, and it was a very quick turnaround for me too. I think it was Monday, we had meetings, we may close. Wednesday, we are closing. Thursday, we close. So it was such a quick turnaround, and I'm sure that all the schools around the country can relate. Todd, as the administrator of the World Language Department, can you relate to what Marie is saying?
Well, very much so. I was actually the program chair for a conference in Minneapolis.
That's right.
The week before, as things started to unfold, and we actually shut the conference down just as it was getting started. Turned home to find that we had meetings on Monday, simply to prepare people to go home, make sure that teachers had technology, make sure they understood how to use the basic of Google Classroom or Zoom, making sure that all teachers had a Google Classroom in place. And then Wednesday, we started, Tuesday or Wednesday, we actually started teaching. And we have high school kids, so of course there were some disasters that happened. Students showing up, saying inappropriate things, coming as other people, inappropriate images. So my teachers, who were all very excited about how to learn how to connect with students online, how to use resources, suddenly felt like they had gotten a couple blows to the stomach. And the district actually shut down our ability to have live interaction with our students until they set some things into place to make sure that both teachers and students were safe. We in Illinois, in the public sector, the State Board of Education gave us some guidelines, and they said for a week, that, well, actually for a 2-week period, they were act of God days, and whatever we did didn't matter. It didn't go into anything. And then once we came back, it was do no harm educationally. And so that meant that students could engage, they could do work, but they weren't required to. And so engagement, how to engage our students, how to make them want to come to be a part. We reworked the way the week was. Every Monday, teachers had planning and meeting time. And then we deconstructed the week so that students saw their teachers twice a week. We wanted teachers to have one interaction face-to-face with students to make sure that there was social emotional health going on, as well as focusing on learning. And so that it became then, how do you create lessons to engage students when they knew they did not have to do the work?
So I hear for both of you, engagement was how to engage them when you're not physically in the same room. You don't know what they are doing, regardless of the age. For the youngest, Marie, it is harder because there's more liability coming from the parents. There's more supervision coming from the adults when they are very young. I see it because I teach kindergarten. It's impossible for them to know the login unless there's a parent telling them. Connection, it's very difficult. How do we connect? Through a screen, there's a barrier, and it's hard to relate when we have the distance. So as far as student challenges, how did your students respond, Marie? What kind of challenges did they have to overcome?
Well, I think that the one question that we had was, do they have a computer? And I hear you, Todd. I'm curious to find out if all your teachers had computers. Our school provides us with computers, so I was very fortunate in that sense. And we got a donation from a family to help us buy necessary equipment to teach remotely. But some of our students, I know that they didn't have access to, really good internet, or they did not have a computer, or they shared a computer with a sibling, an older sibling who needed the computer more. So I think that was access itself to the lesson was one barrier, like the actual physical barrier. Another one was, I'm considered a specialist, and a specialist doesn't mean that I'm not homeroom. So maybe if you have to prioritize the learning of a student, they're going to do reading, writing, math, and maybe if they have time at the end of the day, maybe at some point on Saturday morning while the parents are trying to sleep a little more, they'll put on my video. And so I think that's tricky, right? I mean, the whole piece of trying to, like I said, just remain engaged, like Todd said, and then how much to give, too much, too little, too much, and making sure that students were actually genuinely looking at the material, there is a word in French called décrochage, which is literally unhook yourself from the learning. And I think that was also something that happened. Like Todd said, for the first part of the learning, there was no requirement. Actually, it was optional at all point. We had to write in our learning plans, learning is optional, which made sense because I didn't think it was fair to expect all students to do the work. And I think there was that, the access piece was certainly the biggest challenge that students had to face, whether it was having a computer or having to share it, and then prioritize the learning that needed to happen for kids whose parents maybe worked, and then they are at home with a babysitter, and maybe the babysitter doesn't know how to log in, or the grandmother doesn't know how to log in, and we can't blame them for that. So just, be really thoughtful about how much we assign and what we expected them to do.
Thank you for sharing. In my school, the biggest challenge wasn't the technology, because part of the tuition is to provide computer access in my school as an independent school. But for me, it was the engagement, but also the liability of the students. So when I assigned homework, I had very little return. I had maybe 30% of homework back. And I approached my boss and I said, why is that? How can we enforce that rule? How come that, I'm present, I'm delivering and providing material for them to learn, and how am I supposed to measure the success, their progress, if I don't see something back? And she said, we cannot enforce, the homework assignment. So as a result, this term, instead of having a grade letter, we're gonna have a pass or fail for the third term.
Can I just quickly interrupt? Do you have a grading system in the elementary school as well?
Yes, we have exceed, meet, and the need support. But we scratched this, and for this term, exceptionally because of the circumstances, we're going to have a pass or fail system. So we hope that everybody's going to pass, obviously, if you show up. But my boss told me that the fact that didn't complete the assignment couldn't go against them. Mm-hmm. Todd, how do you feel as an administrator about the technology access? Was it the case for you in a public district? And how do you enforce the assignment, the project, the homework?
So we were lucky in one way. My district is a one-to-one district, so all the students are issued Chromebooks. So they had that. Of course, some students don't use them regularly. Some of the Chromebooks were broken, etc. We replaced those Chromebooks if the students reported that. Also, because of equity initiatives that we had, if a student did not have access, the district provided them with a free hotspot so that they were able to access the internet. They only needed to request that they had that. And fortuitously, the district had already placed its order for the Chromebooks for next school year for incoming freshmen. So we had this stockpile of computers that were waiting for the new freshmen, and we were able to give those to students who needed it, as well as to teachers. One of the buildings had participated in a laptop pilot, so the staff all at one building already had laptops and were used to using that, and then the staff in the other building were issued laptops if they requested one. So scrambling a little bit to catch up with that and that technology. Because students did not have to engage, they were guaranteed the grade that they had on March the 16th when the Act of God Day went into place. And their grade could only improve, which meant if they had an A, they could work or not work. If they had a D, they could only improve their grade and move forward. And we were trying not to add new learning, but instead reinforcing the skills that they already had, be able to do the same functions over and over again. The teachers wanted to focus mostly on interpersonal communication because that met social and emotional needs for students, as well as could further their skills in various arenas, various sorts of themes, and move forward learning without being forced to do new learning. And then scramble as we face and come back next year, assuming we come back in the fall in a normal mode, about what do we have to do to make up for the gaps in learning that we would have assumed would have happened over the 9 weeks that we were out of school this spring.
Let's talk a little bit about parents. Did you have some feedback about parents, about families? Next week in my episode, I'm actually going to interview some parents. So we're going to see the other side of the spectrum. We are educators, but how did the parents react during that distance learning? This is a burden for them, especially for the youngest one. Todd, did you hear from families? What kind of feedback? How did they respond?
Of course, most of my feedback came through students. Through to my teachers, as students were reporting things or teachers were trying to reach out to students when they weren't connecting. And in some instances, the parents' response was, my child doesn't have to learn. That's what the state is saying. Leave me alone. In other instances, the parent would say, my child says they don't have to learn. I didn't know they had work to do. I'm going to encourage them to learn. And in several instances, the parents didn't respond, and we learned because they were ill. We had situations where students were running the household because the parents were quarantined in the bedroom.
Oh, wow.
Or someone in the hospital. Our particular suburb is one of the hardest hit in Chicago area. We've had lots of death and lots of infection. And so the reality for many of our families was, the disease was in their home and they were dealing with it.
Marie, what kind of feedback, what kind of response did you have from your parents?
For me, it was mostly positive. At least the one who did the work, they were happy to share that their child was still, singing the songs. It was like that. Like I said, I'm only in elementary school, so I'm not sure about what the high school feedback was. But some of I would provide bonus work, and I could actually track who was doing it for my 5th graders. So it was kind of interesting to see the percentages of the work being done. But overall, I know that as a school, as an elementary school, we kind of had both ends of the spectrum as far as feedback: too much work and too little work, right? Basically, and I think that it was it's hard for parents. I mean, I'm a parent too. I have 2 little ones, and it's hard to know. It's hard to choose. It's hard to know how much is done, and so I think that was the biggest feedback, was really try to balance, really, again. And but my personal experience with feedback was very positive. Just cute videos of students dancing, or showing me the work they had done, taking a picture of themselves. So it was really nice to see that the ones who did the work, they liked it and they had fun at home, and there was still that connection happening with the target language. And so when I was planning my work, I felt like at least it was hitting home somewhere. So in that sense, it was very, very empowering.
That's good. That's very heartwarming. And we're getting to the end of the conversation as we close the year, because I know that you guys are almost done with your school year. My last week is next week. How bittersweet was it for you guys to close the year, to be remote, for the high schoolers graduating, for the middle schoolers graduating? How did your school arrange for some kind of celebration, Todd? In your district, how did they manage the graduation process?
So we've not had graduation yet. What we have done is the nights of celebration where students would receive awards or be recognized. Lots of people drove to students' homes. We handed their awards to them, signs in their yard. We cut tablecloths so that students could tie ribbons around trees in their yard. The village actually had a Celebrate the Graduates night at 8:20 p.m. on the 20th of May. Had a 15-minute cheer parade, turn on your lights, blow air horns, all of that sort of thing to celebrate. We've been collecting things back from students that belong to the school and returning their belongings to them this week. And then on June 12th, we'll be having a virtual graduation that we have a company who's arranging and taking care of that for us. Students are submitting things to the company and they're pulling them together into a graduation ceremony.
Wow. And we can see this, the power of the people when the community gets together for a celebration. My school is also going to have a virtual graduation ceremony next week. Marie, how did your school respond? What does graduation look like for you?
The traditional New Orleans way. We had parades. So it's actually been one of the silver linings of all of this. There's been so much going on. One of my teachers, one of my daughter's teachers delivered supplies in a costume to my house. That was one of the ways to celebrate them. We had virtual celebrations with awards given by the homeroom teachers in 2nd grade. For 5th grade, we had a drive-through parade where teachers stood 6 feet away from each other with masks, and we had cheered and balloons and horns as students came by and collected some things and got their some flowers. I know the seniors had a parade as well with like a big arch of balloons, and they drove by and they would like try to get on top of their cars and just get all the cheer. Cars were decorated with balloons and foil and all sorts of things. And my understanding is that there will be a tentative on-site graduation later in August. We are a school of traditions. I think that's the hard part about this. Our graduation is really a special moment where students can stand in front of our main building, and the girls wear a specific dress, which is white. And it's just, I think that's what's hard about this. And I think that's something that the school chose. And I only speak from my knowledge, but I don't think that's something that they wanted to do virtually. I know that we had a closing virtual ceremony where we rang the bell, and our oldest faculty, tenured faculty, Madame Ellis, rang the bell. And then we had each division had an online or virtual farewell where students were talking about teachers spoke about the students. And so lower school did it, middle school and upper school did it. And yeah, it was the parades were lovely. I had a lot of fun. Yeah.
This is such a big tradition.
And in August, we'll do a day back in time in the lower school. So August 14th, they'll go back to their previous classroom. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, in August, they'll go back in time to their previous classroom. And on the Friday, we close the year. On Monday, we open the year. Yeah, we're never over. Never over.
You guys know how to party in New Orleans.
Thanks for asking.
And that's wonderful. That's wonderful that you guys are able to continue those traditions virtually, remote. It's so heartwarming. All those parades, the community getting together to celebrate the graduates. It's wonderful. My school is also giving away gift cards. So each graduate will go and buy some food, and we'll have a virtual dinner. So we can still celebrate their accomplishments away, but still share a meal together, because it's what community is about. This is the silver lining of this pandemic. We are learning to redefine our business. We are learning to reinvent ourselves. I'd like to ask, in conclusion, what did you learn about yourself? What have you changed? What did you learn about yourself, Todd, during that challenging time as an individual, but also as an educator?
I learned that at my age, I can't stay in this position in my computer forever. And so I learned that stretching is a very important thing. I have to be flexible mentally as well as physically in order to make things happen. And that's what I encourage all of my teachers to do. Be flexible, and always remember we lead with the heart, even though we may be training the mind.
Self-care is so important. To get up, get some fresh air, take care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, because this is a very draining process. So I'm so glad, Todd, that you are taking care of your team. Marie, what did you learn about yourself as an educator during this very uncertain time?
I would say like Todd, along the line of self-care is really important. I cannot do screen. I am not that kind of teacher. I'm literally always jumping around the yard of my school. So I had to find my own voice online. And I think that was just trying to take some time to reflect and figure out about how to bring my teaching style online and try to continue it this way. That was one, definitely one thing I learned about myself. How do I do this? I learned about new technology tools. Honestly, it was a pretty big learning curve, but learning new strategies, getting trained in new curriculum, the digital one I may want to use next year. Like I said, so we did not do for French this semester. We did not to do a report card and focus on the child as a whole. Send them a letter. Each teacher did that, homeroom teacher did that, showing our hopes, our dreams for them. Focus more on what can you learn away from school and how can this benefit you? Just remembering that we're not just teaching a subject and it's not just us giving, it's, you know, us helping them facilitate the learning that they can do. And I think that was like a huge step back to take, and something that was definitely one of the biggest silver linings for me. And just remember that we are all doing our best. We are. And I think that's one of the biggest silver linings is just remember we're all juggling so many roles in our life, and just telling teachers, parents, students, we'll be okay. We're doing the best we can considering the circumstances. We're the first batch. We're writing history, guys. So I think that we are. I never thought I'd be the kind of history I'd be writing, but we are. And just be kind to ourselves, really, and continue. We'll be fine. We'll figure this out.
Self-care and be kind to each other is a wonderful way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Todd. Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing your perspective. It was, I mean, I know that what I'm doing is I'm trying my best to continue to engage my students. I know I'm not an isolated case. It was so heartwarming to talk to you guys, to give us some words of wisdom and encouragement, words of affirmation that this is an unprecedented time. We don't have any history to compare to. So we were thrown in this situation with 48 hours to know how to swim. So we are trying our best. I wish you a wonderful summer of self-care and a lot of good rest. Next week, I will interview parents. So that would be interesting to know what is the end of their spectrum and how they approach distance learning. Thank you so much, Marie. Merci, Todd. Have a great summer, and I will see you soon in Yapa Photo. Au revoir, à bientôt.
Thank you.